The door closes. Not slammed. Not final. Just closed, the way a hand closes around something it isn't ready to show yet. There is a room some of us have known. Small. Quiet. Lit by a single window that faces nothing in particular. A wall, maybe, or a gray stretch of sky that refuses to commit to weather. You have been in this room. Even if you have never left your house, you have been in this room. Some call it loneliness. Some call it exile. Some call it the flat gray months where nothing seems to move and no one seems to call, and the days stack like unopened mail on a table no one clears. But there is an older name for this room. Older than the word lonely. Older than the modern hunger for constant contact, constant light, constant noise pressed against the ear like a shell that never stops roaring. The hermit's cave, the cell, the wilderness the mystics walked into on purpose, not because they were pushed, but because something in them knew that the self cannot be built in company, only revealed there, built somewhere else, built in the dark, in the cold, in the specific silence that has no audience. Picture the tarot card, if you know it. A robed figure on a mountain. A lantern held forward, low, small, not blazing, just enough to see the next step. No crowd behind him. No crowd ahead. He is not lost. That is the part people miss. He looks lost to those who need company to feel safe. But he is the only figure in the whole deck who is exactly where he means to be. We are taught to fear this room. We are taught that time alone is time wasted. Time alone is time failed. A sign that something has gone wrong with the shape of our lives. The phone should ring. The plan should exist. The silence should be filled before it can ask its questions. And so when isolation comes, a breakup, a move, a loss, a diagnosis, a simple slow drifting away of people who used to call, we treat it like sickness. We treat it like punishment. But what if it is neither? What if the room with a single window is not a punishment room at all? What if it is a quarantine, not against sickness, but for something being incubated? Something that cannot survive exposure yet. Something still forming its shell, its shape, its skin. A quarantine before a birth, not after a death. Think of the body itself. A wound does not heal in the open air, exposed, touched, prodded by every passing hand. It closes over. It scars in private, cell by cell, in the dark beneath the skin, where no one is watching and nothing interrupts. Growth, real growth, has almost always required this same darkness. The seed underground. The chrysalis sealed shut. The fetus in its own private ocean, unseen, unheard, unfinished, but becoming. So here is the question this room seems to ask if you sit with it long enough. Not, why am I alone? But, what is being formed in me that needed the door to close first? What if the isolation was never the punishment? What if it was the quarantine before the awakening? Let's stay with that question. Let it turn slowly, like something held up to a low light. There is a first layer to this, the outer symbol, the one everyone can see from a distance. The hermit as image, the monk on the mountain, the philosopher who walked into the desert, the prophet who did not speak for 40 days, 40 nights, 40 years in some tellings, until the silence itself became the teaching. Every tradition seems to keep this same figure somewhere in its attic. A person who steps outside the village, not out of hatred for the village, but because the village has a rhythm, and some questions cannot survive that rhythm. The village asks, are you working? Are you useful? Are you keeping pace with the calendar everyone else agreed to? The mountain asks nothing. That is its gift and its terror in the same breath. Nothing is asked of you there, which means nothing is answered for you either. You have to ask yourself. And most people, if we are honest, have arranged entire lifetimes so they never have to. This is the outer symbol. A figure withdrawn, a lantern instead of a fire. But symbols are doors, not rooms, and if we only stand admiring the door, we have missed what the tradition was actually pointing toward. So we step through. And here, the image changes shape. The second layer is not about mountains at all. It is about the nervous system. The body plainly does not distinguish well between danger and demand. A full calendar, a loud room, 100 small performances a day. The body registers this as a kind of low continuous alarm, whether or not anyone calls it that. Isolation, entered on purpose, is one of the only conditions where that alarm is finally permitted to go quiet. not silenced, quieted. There's a difference. The ringing doesn't stop all at once. It fades the way a bell fades, in rings that get further apart until the space between them is longer than the sound itself. This is why the Hermit Phase so often arrives first as exhaustion. Not peace, exhaustion. The body finally has permission to feel how tired it has been. And underneath the exhaustion, something else surfaces. Old griefs that had no room to speak in a crowded life. Small resentments. A version of yourself from years ago, still standing in a doorway, still waiting to be noticed. The isolation does not create these things. It only removes the noise that had been drowning them out. This is the second layer, and it is heavier than the first. Because now the question is not why am I alone, but what have I been outrunning? Sit with that if you can bear it. Just for a moment. Don't answer it yet. And here, again, the image turns. The third layer has no image at all, which is perhaps why it is hardest to speak. It is the layer of formation, the part where the self that was leaning on other people's opinions, other people's schedules, other people's definitions of a good life, has to find out what it is made of when none of that scaffolding is available. This is the actual quarantine. Not the room, not the mountain. The self, briefly, without an audience. Think about how much of identity is a performance for someone. A child performs for a parent's approval. An adult performs for a boss, a partner, a feed full of strangers who will never remember the performance by morning. None of this is wrong, exactly. It is simply how belonging works, most of the time for most of us. But performance and formation are not the same act. You cannot find your own shape while constantly checking whether the shape pleases someone watching. The mirror has to come down before the face underneath can finally be looked at. This is uncomfortable. It is supposed to be. Some traditions called this the dark night. Others called it the wilderness, the desert crossing, the night seek journey, though we won't use that last word too often, since it's been worn smooth by overuse. What they seem to agree on, across centuries and continents that never spoke to each other, is the shape of the story, withdrawal, then discomfort, then a kind of clearing that couldn't have been reached by any road running through the village. None of this means the isolation is destiny. It does not mean every lonely stretch of time is secretly sacred, or that suffering always resolves into meaning. That would be a comforting lie, and this isn't a place for those. Sometimes isolation is only isolation. Sometimes a door closes and nothing waits behind it, but more closed doors. But sometimes, not always, but sometimes the quiet is doing something. Something slow. Something cellular. Something that cannot be rushed by wanting it to be over, the way a wound cannot be told to close faster by the person impatient to be well. And if that is what is happening in your particular room, right now today, there may be a way to meet it. Not to escape it. To meet it. There is one more thread worth pulling before we move toward practice, and it has to do with time itself. In the village, time is shared. A calendar with everyone's name on it, deadlines that belong to no one and everyone, a clock that ticks the same for the whole room. In the hermit's room, time changes texture. It stops being a shared object and becomes something private, almost handmade, slower in some hours, oddly fast in others, bent by attention instead of by the clock on the wall. This disorientation frightens people. It is often the first sign that someone reports when the isolation begins, not sadness exactly, but a kind of drift, days blurring into each other, morning and evening losing their edges. And the instinct, understandably, is to fight this, to impose a schedule, to fill the drift back up with structure, the way one might board over a window that lets in too much weather. Sometimes that is wise. A body still needs its rhythms, sleep, food, light, the basic architecture that keeps a mind from folding in on itself. But underneath the fear of drifting time, there is often something else. A suspicion barely admitted that shared time was never quite yours to begin with. That the calendar you followed for years belonged to a job, a family expectation, a culture's idea of a life well spent, and only now in the quiet do you notice how little of it you chose. This is not an accusation against anyone. Most people build their calendars honestly, out of love or necessity or simple survival. But honesty about the calendar's origins is different from blind obedience to it, and the hermit's room seems to specialize in exactly that kind of honesty. It asks, quietly, without malice, whose hours have these been? Across the old stories, this reordering of time shows up again and again. The prophet loses count of the days in the wilderness. The monk stops marking the calendar on the wall of the cell. The mystic writes of a single night that felt, afterward, like it might have lasted a season. We are not meant to read these as literal claims about clocks bending. They are symbolic accounts, the felt experience of a mind no longer measuring itself by anyone else's watch. And this, finally, is the deepest layer beneath the outer symbol and the tired body and the surfacing grief. A private relationship with time is one of the last things restored to a person who has spent years synchronized to everyone else's rhythm. It is uncomfortable at first, the way any unfamiliar freedom is uncomfortable. Then, for some people in some seasons, it becomes something closer to peace. None of this promises an ending. The room does not come with a guaranteed exit date, and anyone who tells you it does is selling something, not teaching something. But a room can be inhabited differently once its purpose is even partly understood. That is not nothing. For some, it is everything they came looking for. If any of this has felt familiar, here are a few small ways to sit inside the room rather than against it. Not rules. Not a secret handed down. Just invitations, the kind you can take or leave. The first is simple. Sit somewhere quiet, hands open on your knees, and ask yourself one question without demanding an answer. What have I been outrunning? Let the question hang in the air like dust in a beam of light. You don't have to catch it. Just notice it's there. The second involves the body more than the mind. Place a hand over your chest, feel the actual weight of your own breath rising and falling, and count how many breaths pass before a thought pulls you away. This isn't a test. There's no score. It's only a way of meeting the animal part of you that has been ringing its alarm bell for longer than you knew. The third is about time, since we spoke of it at length. For one day, remove every clock you can, cover the numbers, silence the notifications, and let hunger and tiredness tell you what hour it is instead. Notice what rises when the shared clock disappears. Some discomfort, maybe some relief. Both are allowed to sit in the same chair. The fourth is a walk without a destination. Not a hike with a summit, not a route with a purpose, just steps taken slowly in a direction chosen for no reason at all. The old wanderers seem to know that the legs sometimes solve what the mind cannot. Let your legs try. The fifth is a small ritual of writing, if the pen still feels natural in your hand. Write one sentence each night, just one, describing what the silence contained that day. Not what happened, but what the quiet itself felt like. Do not read it back for a week. Let it sit, the way a photograph sits in a drawer before anyone develops it. The sixth is a return to the body's oldest comfort warmth. Wrap yourself in something heavy, a blanket, a coat, the low hum of a radiator, and simply notice the weight of it against your skin. This is not indulgence. It is a reminder that a body in quarantine still deserves tenderness, even from itself. And the seventh, if you want it, is this. Once a week, light something small, a candle if you have one, or even just a lamp turned low, and sit with it until it feels less like decoration and more like company. The lantern in the old image was never meant to light the whole mountain. Only the next step. Yours can do the same. None of these are obligations. You're not failing the hermit phase if you skip all 7 and simply sit, staring at a wall, until the wall starts to feel less like a wall and more like a witness. That too is a practice. Perhaps the oldest one there is. One more, if the others felt too gentle. Ask yourself honestly who you have been performing for. Not to shame the answer, whatever it turns out to be, parent, a partner, a stranger online, a version of yourself from 10 years back who set impossible terms. Just name them. Naming a performance does not end it right away, but it starts to loosen the strings a little, the way naming any weight makes it easier to set down. And a last one, smaller than all the rest. Notice the moment each day when the silence stops feeling empty and starts feeling full, even if it only lasts a breath, even if it disappears the second you try to hold on to it. That single moment, however brief, is the room doing its quiet work. You do not have to understand it. You only have to notice when it happens. Let this be the last thing said, and let it be said plainly. None of this is a proven map. No one can tell you with certainty what the silence in your particular room is building, or how long the door stays closed, or what waits on the other side of it, because no one, however old their tradition, has ever seen the inside of your specific life. This is not a prophecy. This is not a secret finally being told after centuries of hiding. It is only one old way of looking at an old human experience, offered the way a lantern is offered, not as proof of the path, just as enough light for the next step. Maybe your isolation is exactly what the old image describes. A quarantine before something wants to be born in you. A clear voice, a steadier self, a version of your own life built without needing an audience to confirm it's real. Or maybe it isn't that at all. Maybe it is simply a hard season, without hidden architecture, without a lesson waiting at the bottom of it. Both are allowed to be true. Neither cancels the other out. What can be said gently is this: rooms like this one have appeared in nearly every tradition humans have ever built, which suggests something, not proof, just a pattern worth noticing, about how often growth has needed a door to close first. The mountain in the old card is not punished. He's simply where he needs to be, lantern low, next step small, missed ahead unreadable. So if you are in the room right now, the one with the single window, the drifting hours, the silence that has started, some days, to feel almost full, you do not have to name it yet. You do not have to decide today whether it is a wound closing or a season simply passing through you. You only have to notice the lantern in your hand. Small, enough for one step. Silence. That may be all any of us ever really have.